State of Jefferson is basically a cultural identity of people who live in this region.
It's not a movement as much as it is an orientation, a state of mind, a state of being.
The place that you can come and do what you want to do.
There's freedom, there's open spaces.
This region of southern Oregon and northern California is known as the State of Jefferson.
It's just our little corner of the world where we're very far from Salem and very far from Sacramento.
Here, armed men once blockaded roads in what was known as the Wairika Rebellion.
We would have been a state. You can still hear that today.
Instead, Jefferson lives on as a regional identity and, for some, a movement for independence.
I think there will be a State of Jefferson.
Funding for Oregon Experience is provided by the Robert D. and Marcia H. Randall Fund for Lifelong Learning, the Oregon Cultural Trust, the Clark Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.
Do you think it'll be better if we create a State of Jefferson so our young people can survive? There you go.
When the government fails to serve the people, it is their duty and their responsibility to abolish that government.
The word impossible is not a statement of fact for us, it's a dare.
It's amazing the number of people who are now identifying with the State of Jefferson movement.
Jefferson was never an official government state, but it exists nonetheless. It is an idea and identity for people in southern Oregon and northern California who consider themselves residents of the great mythical state of Jefferson.
It's not a place so much as a mindset, an attitude that we do things differently here.
We do fashion ourselves, particularly in the West, as rugged individualists. And at the same time, we really want to belong to something.
For most people, the idea of a State of Jefferson dates back to 1941. Then there were 48 American states, but residents along the Oregon-California border decided to stage what they called a patriotic rebellion to create the 49th state.
They knew that the capital Sacramento and the capital Salem were not giving them proper money for roads, proper money for schools, proper support for a lot of things. And so they said, well, we're going to get the hell out of town and become our own state.
Supporters elected their own governor, set up a capital, and adopted a state seal, a mining pan etched with 2 X's signifying how they'd been double-crossed by their governments.
They are the ones who came up with the mottos. Our roads aren't passable, they're not even jackassable, and the state flower is anything but a pansy. It was done partly tongue-in-cheek, but also quite seriously.
Could Jefferson have been a real state? Could it still?
It was a movement that died as an official movement, but I don't think that the resentment or the attitudes died.
Throughout the sprawling rural regions of southern Oregon and northern California, Jefferson lives on. For many, the name now represents the area, and a wide variety of people consider themselves Jeffersonians.
It's a geographical area is what it is. There are kind of borders to find, and once you get inside those borders, kind of it's every man for himself as far as who can create the best definition.
Jefferson is embraced by everyone from a reggae band to a senior citizens theater troupe.
We're in the State of Jefferson, a brand new
over the region, groups and businesses have adopted the name.
It is 8:36 on the Jefferson Exchange on the news and information service of Jefferson Public Radio. Your thoughts are welcome. Try to figure out, well, are we Southern Oregon Public Radio? Are we Northern California Public Radio? No, we're Jefferson Public Radio. That worked.
And Oregon County, town, and mountain all share the name. But by most accounts, the proposed Jefferson state was named for the author of the Declaration of Independence.
Our third president of the United States, who said, a little rebellion now and then is necessary for the sound health of government. Duh.
In the early 1800s, Thomas Jefferson envisioned the uncharted West as a new independent nation, the Republic of the Pacific.
A great free and independent empire on that side of our continent, populated by American settlers but separated from the United States. Thomas Jefferson.
Instead, America expanded into the West Coast, acquiring land from other countries and Native Americans, while far-off officials created arbitrary borders. The Oregon-California line was set along the 42nd parallel. That line would end up being over 250 miles away from each state's capital city.
It's really just like the forgotten corner of this part of the world, where we're very far from Salem and very far from Sacramento and don't get a lot of attention from either place.
I think there's a real urban-rural divide. This area of Northern California, there's a lifestyle that's different than Hollywood and Vine.
Former Assemblyman Stan Statham has been trying to divide California for over 20 years.
This is the bill that relates to the division of the state of California and the...
You go back to a more rural state where there are less rules, less regulations, less frustration. Smaller is better.
But California's fate was sealed in 1848 with the discovery of gold. Tens of thousands of people swarmed into the region. Towns grew to cities overnight. Within months, California applied for U.S. statehood. In 1850, it became the nation's 31st state.
But it was huge, immense, and vast distances with no railroad, a very poor transportation network, rugged canyons, and so forth.
To the north, Oregon was still a sprawling territory that included present-day Washington, Idaho, and western Montana. Residents in the southernmost portions felt more akin to California.
The idea being that there was a regional identity there with the gold mining, that it was separate from the Oregon Territory, which was so big.
In the remote mountains, gold miners felt no obligation to the far-off official government of any state.
The battle over where their allegiance was always in question. They resented paying taxes, and so they would constantly change the state lines. And they would say, no, we're in Southern Oregon, we're in California, no. And so they were constantly battling over which taxes they were going to pay and if they were going to pay taxes.
The first attempt at officially creating a separate state in the region was in 1852, when far northern California residents proposed a state of Shasta. A bill was introduced to the California state legislature, where it quickly died. Within a year, there was another effort, this time to create a state of Klamath.
That was a time when things were very fluid. The area was so remote, it could have made some real sense to Congress. It could have made sense to Californians and Oregonians.
In 1854, a group in Jacksonville, Oregon wanted to create Jackson Territory. One of the leaders in the effort was William Green Tevo. Originally from Tennessee, he arrived in the mining town of Jacksonville during the gold rush.
He was a Southerner born and bred and believed in small government, states' rights, utter white supremacy.
Tevo started the town's first newspaper, which he used to promote his Confederate views. With the Civil War, his ideas for a Jackson territory expanded.
William Tevo was calling for secession of the entire Pacific coast, creating a Pacific Republic that would be a slaveholding republic and be allied with the Confederacy. Not a real popular thing to do.
But the efforts for independence persisted. Secessionist movements have come up again and again throughout the region. A variety of groups have claimed the area as their own.
Jefferson really is wild. It really is the Wild West. It's this wonderful wilderness for the most part, and that difference is not just palpable, but it's embraced by the Jeffersonians, and they say, we're different.
We live a little differently. We live close to the land. We know our neighbors. We don't lock our houses. We leave our keys in our vehicles when we go to lunch.
Many small towns throughout the region have remained the same for decades. They are outposts in the mountains of Jefferson, sometimes with families and local businesses going back several generations.
The only time the brewery wasn't in operation was during Prohibition, and there are rumors that it operated then too.
Today, the Etna Brewing Company makes the official beer of Jefferson.
We call it Double Cross IPA. If you know about the State of Jefferson, it's an independent beer. It's a very strong beer. People come in and say they've never tasted anything like this one.
The State of Jefferson is a wonderful place. It was a great place to grow up. I saw it go from dirt roads to pavement. There was plenty of work here. We had sawmills, lots of logging, farming, mining.
Traditionally, the jobs are blue-collar, based on natural resources. In economic downtimes, unemployment is widespread and devastating to communities.
During the Depression, it's isolated, it's impoverished, jobs are hard to get, the infrastructure is not what the locals would like.
Anger over bad roads prompted the most famous secessionist movement. It began in 1941 with Gilbert Gable, the self-described hick mayor of the westernmost United States, Port Orford, Oregon. Shirley Nelson is an author of local history.
Every time you go to a meeting at the city council chambers, it says Gilbert E. Gable Council Chambers, and his picture's right up there, so you can't miss him. He wanted to help Port Orford. I think he probably did more than anybody else has ever done.
Gilbert Gable was an East Coast radio personality with an extensive background in promotions. He moved to Port Orford in 1935 with big plans, much to the surprise of local residents.
I mean, we were isolated. I mean, we were a long ways from anything. Old Highway 101 took forever to get anywhere.
Curry County was rural, without a single incorporated town. Gable changed that. He convinced the 250 people living in Port Orford to create a municipal government and elect him their first mayor.
Oh, I liked him very much. He was very likable, and he wasn't as nice as his wife, but he was very nice.
He brought much-needed jobs to the area. He opened a mill, built employee housing, bought a gold mine, and started a real estate company.
And he'd been in all kinds of projects and businesses and things, and so he came here to look it over, and then he came up with his grand plans. I mean, he did have grand plans.
He started by blowing up the town dock. He built a new one and hosted a celebration when it was opened.
The governor of Oregon came. There were other dignitaries. There were speeches. There was a band. There was a grand ball in the evening for special guests and so on. Big, big deal. And a few months later, a storm came and wiped out Mr. Gable's dock.
The setback didn't stop him.
He started to get in touch with politicians in Salem and Sacramento saying, if you don't do some of what I need done here so I can make the money I want and build this community, I'm going to secede.
In the 1930s and early 40s, almost all the roads in the region were dirt or gravel. Travel in the winter was sometimes impossible. Residents complained that if the roads were better, timber could be harvested, minerals could be mined. Instead, many felt the abundant natural resources were being wasted and jobs lost.
People wanted to use those resources, but they couldn't even get their trucks in and out. And whenever they would apply to the state for help or complain, there was simply no response. So there was a strong sense of resentment.
At first, Gable threatened to withdraw all of Curry County from Oregon and join California. He notified both governors of his plans.
Oregon just sort of laughed it off and said, hey, if you want to annex yourself to a dry lake, we could care less.
So Gable tried a different tactic. He teamed up with some like-minded Californians. Crescent City Judge John Childs, who had threatened secession a few years earlier, and Randolph Collier, a California state senator later known as the father of California's freeway system. In October of 1941, they called a territorial assembly meeting in Wairika.
It was a way to say to Salem and Sacramento, hey, we're here, you're not paying enough attention to us, we don't like that, and we're gonna kind of throw a tantrum.
Gilbert Gable knew how to use publicity. He notified the press, who jumped on the story.
Malcontent counties protesting nobody loves them want to carve a 49th state out of Southern Oregon and Northern California. Associated Press, 1941.
Wairika was appointed the provisional capital, and supporters came up with a state name, Middle Westcoastia. The local newspaper had a better idea, running a contest for the best name. Among the entries, the State of Discontent. Jefferson won.
People had fun with it. You know, it had a serious intent, but it was kind of a good time.
In this interview from 1992, some of the Jefferson supporters talked about their involvement 50 years earlier.
We wanted to get the excitement of going here, and we had to do something.
They literally worked day and night, dreaming up something new to feed to the press each morning, and the media, they just loved it.
It was said that Jefferson would have no taxes on income, sales, or liquor. Instead, revenue would come from red light districts and gambling halls.
This was a stunt. This was a stunt to draw attention to real problems.
We didn't know that was going to get involved as we were in the thing as far as we were, and it didn't take many days for it to actually get going.
Communities all over the region took advantage of the publicity. A Grants Pass booster club known as the Oregon Cavemen suggested an independent state of cave-mania. Meanwhile, Modoc County withdrew after ranchers threatened to join with Nevada. Jackson and Josephine counties offered moral support, but nothing else. Klamath County said it would rather team up with Portugal. And Shasta County offered to join if Redding was made the new state capital.
We answered them by taking a bottle of castor oil, packaging it up, and sending it back to them by Greyhound. And to the bottle of castor oil, we attached a note. We said, start your own movement. That's the last time we heard from Shasta County.
The activities drew national attention. From the New York Times and Life magazine to the San Francisco Chronicle, articles reported that the area was full of pistol-packing mountain men with a history of lynching.
The Chronicle was a newspaper famous for sensationalizing things.
The San Francisco Chronicle knows a good story and sent a star reporter, Stanton Delaplane, north, who wrote a series on the secession movement in Northern California and Southern Oregon.
Stanton Delaplane was a reporter and travel writer credited with introducing Irish coffee to the United States. He was known for exaggerating and sometimes fictionalizing his stories. Delaplane met up with Gilbert Gable.
So we got together someplace up in Oregon in a very small town and compared notes and decided how we would do it.
By Delaplane's own account, he did a lot more than just report on the story. He helped stage it.
And I began taking charge of it, actually. I mean, I could see that they needed a little help. So I wrote them a manifesto to police, and we stopped cars with the, roadblock.
Along the roadblocks, supporters handed out flyers printed with the Jefferson Proclamation of Independence.
Jefferson is now in patriotic rebellion against the states of California and Oregon. State of Jefferson Citizen Committee, 1941.
But everybody was armed with shotguns and carrying pistols and, and things like that. So we were passing this manifesto down which declared our rebellion against Sacramento.
They announced they would secede every Thursday until given their own state.
What does that really mean, especially when you're working with a clever public relations expert? It's a charade.
National news agencies sent movie cameras to record and sometimes stage the events.
The newsreel cameramen were instructing the locals on how to act. Cheer now, cheer, when the speeches were going on.
3 news agencies that were here, representatives I should say, and they picked out a spot themselves, lined it up and got the cameras lined up and had us all prepared to come out there and told us what to do.
Then tragedy struck. Gilbert Gable unexpectedly died, likely of a heart attack. Dorothy Matthews was at his home just the evening before.
Everybody was very surprised. It was just an outlandish thing to have happened. He hadn't even been ill.
The movement carried on. On December 4th, 1941, a torchlight parade made its way through Wairika. The local newspaper had encouraged people to wear Western regalia for the cameras. Thousands turned up. They gathered at the county courthouse and inaugurated Judge John Childs of Crescent City, governor of Jefferson.
We were very excited about it because we had never been on camera, any of us, and to think that we'd have them here in the local movies.
The newsreels were set to hit movie theaters a few days later. But everything changed on December 7th, 1941.
And then suddenly, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. It was all over.
Governor Childs issued a statement dissolving the movement. The newsreels were never shown in theaters and lost for decades. Stanton Delaplane went on to win a Pulitzer Prize for his 7-piece series on the Wairika Rebellion.
I think that those 1941 events really were embraced at the time, in part because the nation was war-weary, but also because it was so cleverly presented. If you read the New York Times dispatch about what was going on in 1941, they're taking this nonsense seriously.
America owes much of its greatness to the lavish use of wood.
After Pearl Harbor, the war effort brought jobs and infrastructure to the region.
Wood for war, wood for peace.
The State of Jefferson proponents of 1941 were getting what they wanted. There were mills popping up, sawmills, lumber mills, plywood mills, a sign of prosperity in every little Oregon and Northern California town. That's how things were. This whole State of Jefferson movement was not forgotten, but it became kind of a, just a footnote.
In the White House, President Eisenhower signs the proclamation that makes Alaska's entry into the Union official. Nearly 92
In 1959, Alaska became the 49th state, followed by Hawaii. Could it have been Jefferson? Views are varied.
We would have been a state, you can still hear that today, if it weren't for Pearl Harbor.
The issue has not died for 72 years, and I don't ever expect for it ever to die.
The issue came up again in 1956 when a group angry over water rights pushed for a state of Shasta. But other efforts, like the Jefferson Day celebration in Klamath Falls, were clearly about promotion and tourism.
They wanted people to move here, they wanted investment, they wanted a boom.
And people were trickling in. By the 1970s, Jefferson began to attract outsiders, not as a movement, but as a unique and isolated location.
The region there between Roseburg and Reading was an ideal place to find relatively inexpensive land, stay away from crowds and maybe law enforcement, and hence a new type of State of Jefferson citizen arrived.
Came the time I headed out for the country, left Seattle, Washington.
The new residents didn't necessarily want more government infrastructure. Instead, they wanted freedom to live by their own rules.
To the state of Jefferson.
The state of Jefferson is pretty much the final frontier right now, you know? It's like the place that you can come and do what you want to do.
A few communes sprung up in the mountains. And a billion-dollar, largely illegal industry grew up in the rural forests. This portion of Jefferson is infamous nationally as the Emerald Triangle.
Marijuana is a cash crop of significance for the state of Jefferson.
Meanwhile, traditional natural resource-based jobs have dwindled. And tougher environmental restrictions on logging and water have fueled resentments.
We're just overloading things with laws and regulations.
So they pass rules and regulations that one fits all. That don't work up here.
In Northern California today, there are renewed calls to form an independent state, once again named Jefferson.
For the people here, they see it as an opportunity to restructure the state government that would reflect the rights of individuals, and including property rights and water rights.
I think there will be a state of Jefferson, yes.
According to the U.S. Constitution, to create a new state, the California and Oregon legislatures and the U.S. Congress would all have to agree.
Good luck. There's not much of a population or industry base.
So I don't see it ever happening.
Our problem was we didn't have enough pull with state capitals, Salem and Sacramento. How were we going to have power in Washington, D.C.? I don't know.
Though efforts continue to form a separate independent government here, for now, the mythical Jefferson remains a state of mind.
Wouldn't it be great to go waltzing through Jefferson State?
I feel State of Jefferson is a feeling, it's a consciousness.
Something like Jefferson gives us a sense of belonging.
We're different from the urban part of the state. And please remember that.
Thank goodness we live in a state of Jefferson.
Jefferson waltz will be always in blue.
There's more about the state of Jefferson on Oregon Experience Online. To learn more or to order a DVD of the show, visit opb.org. Funding for Oregon Experience is provided by the Robert D. and Marcia H. Randall Fund for Lifelong Learning, the Oregon Cultural Trust, the Clark Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.